Most beginner DJs are using the wrong Serato settings and they don't even know it. And the crazy part is these settings can completely mess up your mix, your transitions, your mental state, and even your sound quality. In this video, I'm going to show you the exact Serato settings you need to fix it right now. I've got 6 different categories, so make sure that you stick around till the very end so you get all of the things that you need, including the checklist below. I've been teaching DJs since 2004. I've been Serato certified for almost 20 years, and these are the exact settings that I make every student fix before ever playing a real set. And these are also the settings that I put into my personal laptop when I get a new one, including this right here. Literally, I'm making this video because I just got a new laptop. So let's do it. Let's jump in. Okay, so the first category is performance and stability. These are 6 categories that I want to go through with you. This first one, performance and stability. I want to break this down. What does that even mean, coach? Let's go up here where the settings are. So in the very top right-hand corner, you can see where my cursor is. I'm going to click on that. We've got to switch to our different tabs. So I'm going to switch to the audio tab. USB buffer size. We want to make sure that if you've got a faster computer, this could be lower. But if you've got a slower computer, you want to make sure to move this up higher. And once you do, you need to hit apply. I've got a pretty fast computer here. I'm just going to leave it at 1. Second thing, while we're still here, use laptop speakers. You can check this on or off, especially when you're connected to an actual controller. So today, I'm connected to this guy. I'm connected to the DDJ Flex 4. Because I'm going to see this setting on my actual setup. So it says use laptop speakers. If I check that on, now audio is going to come out of my laptop speakers instead of routing to a pair of speakers. So let's say you were trying to send this out of your laptop to somewhere else. You could do it that way, or maybe you just wanted to use your laptop speakers while you were practicing when you were not connected to actual bigger speakers. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to keep it off. I don't really quite need that. And then the last thing I want to show you in this category, we actually, if you come up to the top here, you'll see that there are a couple global settings. This right here, you'll see this little white line that comes all the way up to about 12 o'clock. This is our master gain. I'm going to turn this up just a little bit to about 1 o'clock, just a little bit there. That way when I'm playing tracks, you can sort of see I'm just barely touching the red. I don't want this to be too hot. If it's too loud, I'm going to start to get distortion. So I usually set mine to about 1 o'clock or so. So that's that category. Okay, our second category, mixing and control. We've got a couple of settings that we want to take a look at. Let's jump back in, click on settings. And now instead of being in the audio tab, we're going to go over to the DJ preferences tab. And the first thing that we're going to look at for is the sync mode. Now, I know, sometimes you may have heard sync is a bad word. Do not say sync. As an old school DJ like myself, I know plenty of my peers that are so against sync. And it's because we're a little bit jealous that we didn't have this when we started out. So we spent hours and hours, thousands of hours learning how to manually beat match, which by the way, we're better off for it. And even still today, even though you can use sync, learning how to manually beat match, really training your ears, training your body to be able to manually beat match is a tremendous skill to have. And I recommend for every DJ to learn that. However, when you're just starting out, I think that you should be using sync. It's like having training wheels. There's no shame in it. I'm certainly not here to shame you, but let's look at where the settings are for that. Let's switch over. So there's a couple different sync modes. You can turn sync off if you wanted to. You can also turn on simple sync or smart sync. I personally like to have simple sync on. If I use sync, simple sync is the best possible one for me. What it allows me to do is I hit the sync button, it changes the BPM to where I want it, but I still need to make sure that my timing is good in terms of how I bring it in. I can always hit sync again to get it to snap into place if it's off a little bit, but that's a good one to have. And then snap to beat grid is really important. So when you sync and you hit sync, now it's going to snap it to your beat grid, which means your beat grid has to be right and has to be correct. But something that you should definitely check on. So simple sync checked on and snap to beat grid checked on as well. While we're here, let's shift on over to the mixer section. On the mixer section, you'll notice that there is an area for crossfader and also for the upfader. In this case, I am using this controller. I'm using the DDJ Flex 4 today, so I don't actually have a knob or a button or switches to be able to change the crossfader behavior. All of that is done inside of the software. So depending on the controller that you have, your settings might be slightly different. So if we come back into the software, we'll see I've got the ability to change the curve of the crossfader. So right now it's set somewhere between slow and fast, which means when I'm using the crossfader, if I am going from here to here, the volume is actually dipping in here. So instead what I want to do, in fact, here, check it out. I'm playing a song right now. It's getting louder. And same thing when it fades. Right, so it's starting to fade as I'm using the crossfader. Now you might say, "But coach, don't you want it to fade?" Yes, I'm going to use these to be able to fade. This I want to just be on or off. So instead, what I'm going to do is when we come over here, I'm going to set the crossfader curve to fast. Now I could also disable the crossfader, but in this case, let's just go ahead and set it to fast. What you're going to see then is when I go back into this, if I were to go back into here, now when I'm playing, as soon as I come off the other side, I'm getting 100%. So it goes from 0 to 100%. And then there's no change here, which is good. That's what I want. I want that set that way. That way I don't accidentally bump this and now get a volume boost. This is a common mistake that I see a lot of DJs making. A lot of DJs who are just starting off, they have the crossfader activated to a slow sort of fade. And so as I'm listening back to a mix, I'll all of a sudden hear a huge volume boost. We don't want that. We want to try to even that out as much as possible. Last one here in this category, we're going to go ahead and close the settings. And up here, right above where you see Hapa edit, there's a little Q. That stands for Quantize. What that means, I usually have Quantize on when I'm mapping songs, but also if you were to be playing and you're playing live and you're jumping to another section of the track using a hot cue, Quantize will help ensure that it is snapping to the grid, meaning it'll make up for any bit of your timing being off. Check it out. So I'm going to show you this. See how Quantize is on, so it's snapping to place? Like, I'm even hitting this faster, and it's still coming in exactly where it's supposed to be. And let me show you another one. So let me get back to like where the beat comes in. Let's go ahead and set a hot cue there. So your timing can be a little bit off and it will still snap into place. So having Quantize on can be really helpful. Now, if you're trying to do something that's much faster, sometimes that Quantize setting might get in the way. So you can always toggle it on and off. You can also change how short that Quantize length is. I personally like mine set the way that it is. It's set to a 1 beat. I like it that way. If I'm using Quantize, it's because I want it to snap in that way. So that's typically how I have it set. Okay, our third category. While we are here, we're going to talk about hot cues. I love hot cues. Hot cues are everything. I use them not only to be able to jump to a different section in the track, especially if Quantize is on, but I also use it to be able to identify different parts of the song. So this is a huge part of my training that I have at the DJ Coach is our hot cue strategy and being able to gain confidence with the songs that you're playing. More on that later. Today what we're going to talk about though in terms of the settings is we want to make sure that we have two things set up. Number one, we want to make sure that we have sort cues and loops chronologically. I know it's like a lot to say, but let me show you what that means. So let's say I'm here. And let's say we get down into the track. Like let's get to here. And let's say I set a hot cue here. and then let's say I set a hot cue here. Now, in this case, I've set them all in an order. You'll notice that I go from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. They'll all be in that order. But let's say I wanted to get rid of, let's say I got rid of number 3. Well, now look at what happened. There's a giant hole. Yeah, it looks like a missing tooth in my hot cues, right? Now, watch what happens if I go over to my settings and I go to DJ preferences and we say sort cues and loops chronologically. Check that on. Now, when we go back, watch what happened to our missing tooth. Aha, it put it in. Now, not only that, but let's say I want that hot cue back. So let's say I want this hot cue again. What I could do is I could then set a hot cue wherever I want. I could set it in this last position even, in that 8th slot, and watch what happens. It puts it in the right order. So it puts it in the order that it would have been chronologically. I love this feature. In other software programs, you don't have that. So in order to really do that, you've got to move things around, or you just have these holes. And I don't know, maybe it's I'm not really that neat, but I like to think that I'm pretty organized, or I like it when things look organized, and it just, again, it looks like a missing tooth. So I like to have that setting on. I think it's a really good one to have on. And then the other one I like to have on, if we go to settings, is you can have on song load, play from start, or play from first cue point. I like it from play from first cue point. So I generally set a hot cue at the very beginning of the track, but sometimes there is a song that starts and it's maybe got just some sounds, and then I set a hot cue for where the first downbeat is. When I load the song, I want to be able to load it and it automatically goes to the very first hot cue. That's what I want in my system. So these are two of the settings that you definitely need to make sure that are on, and let's move on to our next category. Our next category, workflow and performance features. Let's jump in. Okay, so let's come on over here again in DJ preferences. I want to show beat jump controls. Now, before I do, I want to show you what this looks like without it. So if we look at this loop section, what we see is we see 1/8, quarter, half, 1, 2. This is all loops. But watch what happens when I say show beat jump controls. Let's go back on over here again. Show beat jump controls. I'm going to turn that on. And now we've got 2 rows. The first row is going to be loops, and I can use my arrow to make the loops bigger or smaller. And the second row is going to be beat jump. Now, you might be wondering, Coach, why would you even want beat jump? Well, with beat jump, I can figure out how long different sections are. For instance, if I were to take this first beat and I wanted to figure out how long this section is before the drums come in, in fact, let's do it backwards. So here's the drums, and we want to go backwards. This is 16 beats. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? 16 beats, which is the same as 4 bars or 4 measures. So if I beat jump backwards, 1, 2, 3, 4. Aha! So it's 4 sets of 4 measures or 4 phrases, which means that it's 16 bars long. Understanding the length of the sections is going to be really important for when I mix things together. So beat jump is very useful for that. Another thing that you can do with beat jump, though, as this is playing live, I can actually jump the track ahead 4 bars. Watch this. You didn't even notice it. I'm jumping. You see that little white? That's crazy, right? So I'm jumping ahead 4 bar sections, and because of the nature of this, especially with house, with techno, with a lot of music that has these longer mix points, having beat jump might help you get ahead in the track without having to jump to an actual hot cue. So beat jump controls is really helpful to have set on. The other thing, as we are here, I want to show you one other thing, which is this is the view. In this view, when it comes to workflow and performance, I don't like to see the horizontal waveform smashed in the middle here. What I like is I like to see this. Aha! Much more, much better. I can actually see more of the waveform. I can see behind it, in front of it. I can also zoom in and out. So that is the plus and minus keys on the keyboard. So all I'm hitting is plus and minus on the keyboard, which allows me to zoom in and out of the waveform. One more setting that is really helpful to have is if we come back into DJ preferences, you will see replace primary hardware pad mode with stems. I'm going to go ahead and click that on. And in this case, with the controller I'm using right now, I only have one option. You can see I only have one option, which is sampler. When you do this on your controller, you will actually maybe see different options. So sampler is fine. I will sacrifice my sampler for stems. And in this case, let me show you what this looks like. If I switch over to sampler mode, now I can actually control stems. In fact, let me show you. I can control the first row of stems. You can see that there. I also have the effects here inside of Serato. So I have stem effects here inside of Serato. So let's go ahead and jump forward a little bit. Really cool, right? The ability to use stems is really awesome. The stems inside of Serato sound great as well. And so there's a lot that you can do with that. You want to make sure, though, to be able to replace pad mode with stems. Now I need to figure out, well, how am I going to access my sampler? And by the way, I can still access my sampler. Even with this, I've got keyboard shortcuts. I can also plug up a separate device. But I do want to make sure that you know this because you do not necessarily need a new controller that has other buttons to be able to control the stems inside of Serato. And worst comes to worst, you can always activate stems by using your mouse and keyboard, which is great. Okay, let's talk about library. Library and display. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's jump in here so you can see it. On the library side, this is a brand new computer that I am recording with at this moment, so I don't really have much in here. Literally, I just have this one song right now. But what I want to be able to do is I don't want to see iTunes. So I'm going to go back into the settings. I don't have anything in the iTunes. I'm going to go to library and display, show iTunes library. Let's uncheck that. We don't need that. And you'll see that now that iTunes logo is gone. Now that was just one of the things that's here. I've got a whole bunch of other stuff, a bunch of other streaming services that I don't actually use. So I'm going to go in here and it says show streaming services, and I'm going to uncheck that. Now it's nice and clean. I don't have any of that. Now, if you were using a streaming service, you would want to make sure that your streaming service was there so that you could access your music. But if you're not using streaming services, no worries. Now, this one's going to be a little bit hard to show you on this. So I'm going to actually use my old computer and show you a screenshot of this. But if I were to click on center on library selection, I'm going to turn this off. Now, this is a small, subtle difference, but I'm going to go ahead and show you what this looks like on my other computer. When I'm scrolling, you'll be able to see that I can actually see above and below the track that is selected. This is very helpful because sometimes if I'm searching for BPM or key, I want to be able to see above and below it, not just have the bar at the very bottom. So I like to keep that one checked on. Okay, our last and final category, and hopefully you've made it this far because I want to make sure that you have all of your settings ready to go. If you needed to pause and rewind, you could. Otherwise, I've got a really great bonus that we've got here below in the description. You will see the ability to download a checklist. This is a nice, neat checklist that you can go through with some screenshots, and it'll give you an idea of being able to follow along exactly with my settings. So you're all good. Okay, so here we go. Last category. This is all about visual clarity. So being able to make better mixing decisions by being able to see things a bit better. So number one, we like to switch this on. Let's go to DJ preferences one more time. All right, so let's jump in here once again. Let's go on to library and display. And here on library and display, you'll see where it's displayed EQ colored waveforms. I'm going to go ahead and check that on. What that then does is as I'm using the EQ, when I twist the knob, watch what happens to the waveform. That's cool, right? So red is the low frequencies, green is the mid frequencies, and blue is the high frequencies. So if I had this, this is such a great feature inside of Serato. It is great to be able to look over and even look at the waveform and be able to tell that, oh, this section is all low end, or oh, this section is all highs. Like you can see that visually with the waveform because of the colored display. And the EQ part of it, the colors would be there regardless. But the part that I just checked on is the ability that when I move the EQ knob, it changes the actual display so that you got the effect that I just showed you there. Okay, some of you are like me and you're not classically trained musicians, which is totally fine. In fact, there's a really great tool to be able to help us out. It's called the Camelot wheel. It was developed by our friends over at Mixed and Key. Shout out to them. And it is available inside of Serato. So if you look here, that next to the dial, it says 3A. Now, for a music person that is classically trained, 3A doesn't mean anything. But if we were to go here inside of our settings, that's because I'm showing key as Camelot. If I went back to classical key, this is what it would be. It would be a B flat minor. All right, so B flat minor is the same as 3A. So I'm gonna go back to Camelot. And personally, I like to have it set to Camelot. It just makes it so much easier for me to be able to follow along in terms of what will mix with what. We have a whole lesson on harmonic mixing. If you want to be able to learn more about harmonic mixing, make sure to go and check that out. But in the meantime, I like to have that setting on to Camelot. Okay, so our last one here, there are some other settings inside of Serato, but they're not as important. The ones that I've given you right now are the most important settings to make sure that you have, that you understand how this works. Some of the other things are other preferences and whatnot, and they're just not as important. This one, though, does make a big deal. Deck BPM display. By default, it is 1 decimal place. I have seen people with 2 decimal places. I personally think it's actually more confusing. 1 decimal place is more than enough. And what that means is, let me go ahead and shift it to 2. You'll see that this is 123.99. You see it up there? 123.99. So as I'm moving the tempo, this is too much. It's too much to be like 70, 11, 7, 1. And I'm like, what, watching it? I'm watching it as I'm doing that? That's crazy. Let's just go ahead and set it back to 1. I wish it was just whole numbers, to be honest. And then I usually end up beat matching by ear anyways. But I got it down to 1 decimal place. This looks a lot less crazy to have just like that 1 decimal place. So that's another final setting for you there. Once you fix these settings, everything just feels easier. Cleaner mixes, better timing, and way more control. Now, if this helped, hit like and subscribe for more DJ tutorials. And check out this next video right here. It's the perfect next step. Also, grab the free checklist below, and if you're serious about learning and growing as a DJ, I'll show you the full roadmap to getting booked. I'll see you on the next one.